In addition to learning Torah, because God commanded us to learn Torah, we're also praying for the healing of all the wounded in this war, including what happened 2 weeks ago. 2 former Israeli students are in severe condition, and we're praying for their healing. Chizkiyahu Guy ben Chana and Evyatar Chaim Menachem ben Zahava. Chizkiyahu Guy ben Chana and Evyatar Shabtai and Evyatar Chaim Menachem ben Zahava. Each of them has a name added to their name. They're still under support systems. They're not, can't be communicated to. Menachem send them Refuah Shlema amongst all the other Cholei Yisrael. At the end of this parasha, you could pray for Avram Avinu. That may God give him also a speedy recovery. But before we get to that, we're going to see, hopefully, this chapter in its entirety. And as we learn or begin learning the section of Brit Milah, and also the announcement of the birth of a son called Yitzchak, we're going to be learning here in this chapter about Revelation number 4. By God to Avram Avinu here in Eretz Yisrael. And there's a question to be asked: what is the reason for the repetition? Or what is a novelty the second time, the third time, the fourth time? We want to just say shortly, while God promised 3 times prior to this time, Avram has yet to biologically have a child with Sarah. And therefore there's estimation or conjecture that Avram thought Aleph, while God meant Bet. It could be, as my dear father, Rabbi Horowitz, writes in his wonderful sefer called Siyach HaSadeh, the discussion of the field, that after the first time that God promised Avram a child, he thought, well, maybe it meant with Lot being his next of kin, his brother's child, maybe it was meant for him. But after the second time that God revealed himself and Lot was no longer together with Avram, then maybe Avram understood that it's not Lot, but maybe it's his house manager, his property manager, called Domestic Eliezer, his servant, his student. Okay? Not only a student, but he would teach others. And there's a play on words, the Talmud says. Domestic from the word Dole umashke. He just like Hananel, he went down to the well for me, and he took a bucket of water and he put it down below, and he, what is the word? Lidlot et hamayim. He brought up the waters, and now he's drinking me. That's what Domestic Eliezer stands for, amongst other things, as the Talmud says. So maybe the blessing for a child is Domestic Eliezer, his outstanding student. However, when God, after God, the third time, in the Brit Ben Abitarim, which was the former time before our chapter, maybe it means that the child born to his Shivcha, his maidservant called Hagar, and the child's name is called Yishmael. There's no doubt that Avram was appreciative, thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for this gift. And at that time, Yishmael was the only child. And it could mean that Avram thought, mistakenly, that all the blessings for children and inheriting the land are related to Yishmael. Maybe. Certainly, he learns, Avram, that the mistress Hagar is not a proper woman. But nonetheless, it brings us to our chapter here, and we hope that we can see chidushim, novelties, in understanding this chapter. And the basic question I want to raise in front of all of us right now, well, why now is the mitzvah, the commandment for Brit Milah? Why wasn't the commandment given earlier, to be done earlier, when Avram reached the land of Israel? And what is the Brit Milah doing for Avraham? And why are the household members of Avram, as we see at the end of the chapter, why are they being circumcised and entered into the Brit? So this and more in today's shiur. It took me a long time to write that poetry. Okay, Perek Yud Zayin. Thank you, Chananel, for the tea. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nihi b'dvaro. Wow, is it so good? Thank you. Vayi Avram ben 90 shana v'teisha shanim. Vayera Adonai el Avram. Vayomer elav ani el Shaddai. Hitalech lefanai v'yet tamim. There's a new name that Avram meets up with in this revelation, a new name of God, and that two-word name is called El Shaddai. Shaddai. Shah or She, Dai. God is the one that brought limitations, borders. God has the strength, he did this and didn't do that. Or God has the power to, as Rashi says, to suffice every creature. God is Dai, he's the Almighty, he has the word might. Okay? Or as the Ibn Ezra says, God has the strength. Or in general, Ramban says he has the ability to force all forces of nature. God can bend, circle, do anything he wants to the forces of nature, the forces of heaven and earth, to do whatever he wants to do. So we ask ourselves, why is this name preliminary, introductory to this chapter of the Brit Milah? Why is it taught to Avram Avinu in this revelation now? So the Ramban Nachmanides says, well, Hashem, as you know, performs hidden miracles for his tzaddikim, for his righteous. There are times he saves them from death, like in the war against the four kings. Hashem feeds his tzaddikim during a time of famine, like God provided for Avram and his household when he went down to Mitzrayim, and so on. So the revelation of the name Shaddai is going to now prelude to Avram Avinu. You, Avram, will overcome nature. You will have a child, and a covenant, an agreement will be made between Hashem and his child forever. Why? Do you remember the words of Moshe in that poetry of Shirat Azinu? Quote, Ki chelek Hashem amo. Little translation, Ki chelek Hashem amo. Who is part of godliness? Amo, his nation. His nation is part of godliness. Okay? And therefore God and Moshe, then as the bringer of the nation out of Mitzrayim, but so too right now Avram Avinu, it's a unified matter. They're one. God and Avram Avinu are intertwined, are as if they're one entity. So right now, there's a prelude. You're going to have a child, not according to the laws of nature. And therefore, I want you to know that the matter of Shaddai, God has the ability to do anything. Number one. Number two, Rabbeinu Hananel, one of the great Rishonim, says, usually when circumcision is performed and that limb, that foreskin is cut, people often think, well, man's power, man's force is weakened by Milah. But don't worry. This mitzvah is given in the name of the all-powerful, Shaddai. No way or fashion will it be that Avram will be weakened from this mitzvah, because the name of Hashem Shaddai is involved in this revelation, in this commandment. And furthermore, let there be no misunderstandings. Rabbeinu Bechei explains, to think that the one that's cutting his foreskin is going to be weakened, he's going to be overtaken by his enemies. No. Hashem promises, Ani El Shaddai. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to give you the strength. I'm going to give you the courage in order to overcome your enemies. Do we have enemies today? We're not. Right? How many fronts are we fighting a war today? 7. Is there anything like that in world history? That simultaneously at the same time, on every border, next door neighbors, we have army and people that Hashem is Shaddai behind them. We are the tzvaot, the hosts, the army of God. It's not a Chabad commercial, right? And we're going out and performing God's will to save the Jewish people. Now, at the end of this commandment, or this, how do you do, Ani El Shaddai, God commands Avram 2 things. Number 1, Hitalech Lefanai. And number 2, a louder, Veheye Tamim. What does the word Hitalech mean as opposed to Halech? What is Halech and what is Hitalech? Why is it like in the Hitpa'el, in the reflexive tense? Well, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch explains in his commentary that as opposed to the word Halech, go, Hitalech is you're going in your path independent of what's happening externally. You're strong in your mind. Do you feel the winds and the currents of thoughts, of different beliefs in the world? Certainly in the parts of Asia where some of you come from, that is the dominating part. Here, God says, Hitalech. You walk, go in your path, independent of any external circumstances. Be led from within yourself. Okay? And of course, godly powers of faith behind you, that will keep you going. So that's Hitalech Lefanai. Lefanai meaning in the presence of Hashem. May God be in your mind. Has anyone ever seen in a synagogue, by the place where the Chazan stands, often there is a pasuk. Have you seen it before? Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. Explanation in English? Shiviti Hashem. I placed, right. So it's a good idea. When the Chazan is standing there, says, I'm not in a supermarket right now, or I'm not talking about baseball or football. I'm right now thinking that I'm before God. Okay? The other night, I was nice to my wife. Said, look, I have a meeting here and there in Beit El. Menachem, maybe come and learn in Beit El tonight and learn there. So I went to visit a friend who was sick. And then I went to Arvit in the famous synagogue where I prayed for 20 whatever years. And I went to my seat in the second row. And I'm looking at this gigantic structure that I think I showed you once. It's like a gigantic replica of the Beit HaMikdash with fire, like a flame coming up. And I said to myself, wow, that's exactly what you want to think of when you're praying the Shemona Esrei. I think I'm standing before God in the Beit HaMikdash, and I'm praying to God. So it helps you, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi. I'm lefanai, I'm before God, right? The second command here, Veheyet Tamim. Has anyone seen a mitzvah in the book of Dvarim with the word Tamim? Does anyone remember that source? 4 words. 5, I'm sorry. Tamim tihiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. Please repeat. Tamim tihiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. There's a mitzvah, Dvarim chapter 14, correct? To be complete. Innocence before God. Don't listen to what the sorcerers, what the the magicians are fortune tellers telling what's going to happen tomorrow. Have complete faith in God. What does tamim here, though, mean? I know you know regarding the korbanot, the term tamim is used at what? And not have any blemish whatsoever. What does it mean that Avram has to be tamim in the second command? Avram, as the Rashi brings the name of the Midrash, Avram must be perfect. What does that mean, perfect? Complete? The opposite of what many people think. Avram, like almost all of us, is born with the orla, ayin resh, lamed hey, commonly called in English, the foreskin. The foreskin is attached to the limb of Avram. God is saying that's a blemish. The opposite of logic. You have to cut it. The cutting off of the orla is not a blemish. The opposite. Okay? Avram cannot be complete. Cannot be ready for complete service before God unless that blemish is removed. Okay? And therefore, Avram must perform, it'll be told to him momentarily in the prophecy, an act in his body that he would have never had the Hava Amina. He would have never had that preliminary thought that in order to be Tamim, I have to take a piece off of my body. This is the way God created me. But Avram, since he's complete in his heart, he's complete in his character, and he's in his field of intelligence and instruction, he's always aspiring for more and more service of God. So here it is. We're going to learn that Avram is going to be commanded to perform a oath, a sign, an oath. Is it true that tefillin is called an oath? Between who and who? Where else do we meet up with the terminology oath? Shabbat. Also, oti beini uvein bnei Yisrael. So too here, we're going to learn about an oath, a sign of connection, that Avram and Avram's seed will be a special nation connected, binded to God. And therefore, upcoming, the Brit Milah, the taking off of the orla, the lacking, the cutting it off, will make Avram tamim. Why? Because this is God's will. This is absolute from God's intelligence. And God purposely created man, and Am Yisrael especially, that we have the foreskin, and that is a lacking. It's a blemish. And that has to be removed in order for there be an oath, a sign of connection between Avram and his seed in Israel and God. Pasuk bet, V'tenavriti beni uvenecha. Wow, another Brit. In addition to the other chapter, the Brit called Brit Bein Habitarim. So what is this Brit about? Let's read. V'arbe otcha b'ma'od me'od. Rashi states here that Hashem is giving his covenant to Avram and specifies that this Brit that you're going to be doing is regarding love, connection, adoration. That's number one. And number two, it'll be a Brit regarding the land of Israel. In other words, the performance of this Brit is not just something bodily, a sign between me and God on my body, or like we say in bracha number 2, in Birchat HaMazon, quote, Ve'al britcha shechatamta v'v'sareinu. This is your Brit that you sealed on our flesh, but rather it'll be a Brit of love. To do a Brit Milah for yourself, like some of you have done, or to do it, God willing, for your children. You have to love God because it's very painful. Okay? In fact, Minhag Chabad, that at a Brit Milah, they don't recite Shechianu because of Tsar Diyunuka, the Gemara says, the agony or pain of the baby. But we know how to resolve that as well. We give the baby some wine right away, put it in his mouth. Oh, wow, it's so great. Getting some alcohol. He already doesn't feel, right? Did you notice what the Moal does? The Moal, after doing the Brit Milah, he dips like cotton or something into the cup of wine, and he puts it into the mouth. so that the baby absorbs the alcohol, some schnapps, right away. And that soothes the pain. He doesn't feel the pain. So here we have Brit Ava, the Brit of love. And number 2, Brit Haaretz. The Brit Haaretz will be stated in verse 8 in a moment as we get up to it. So gentlemen, the Jewish destiny, is not a product of natural things happening. We need divine commandments, and therefore, let's read that it's Beini Uveinecha. The connection between me and you, God and Avram Avinu and Israel thereafter, is based upon unnatural events, unnatural actions or mitzvot, that they come from God. No one would have thought that this is the way to serve God. Of all limbs, of all parts of our body, dafka, the most sensitive limb, that has to be cut? Wow. Kedusha permeates above and beyond your mind, and it goes even to that limb down below. There's holiness even there. Psh, wow, what a deep idea. What a deep idea. Gentlemen, let's go on. God is here promising, Va'arbe otcha. I'm going to make you into many. B'ma'od me'od. So here, let's find out more details about how God will multiply to an extreme limit what Avram Avinu stands for. Pasuk Gimel. In response to this prophecy, he falls. No, you don't have to call Mada. You don't. Vayipol Avram al panav. No, he didn't slip over a banana peel. Vayidaber ito Elohim lemor. Before we get into the lemor and read Revelation number 4 regarding the commandment here, what is the explanation? Why does he fall, gentlemen? Or the Shekhinah is appearing with a new name. I've never met up with this. It's something, wow. Or is so important. There are 2 ways to serve Hashem: out of love, ahava, and out of yira, out of fear. And we have to find the equilibrium, the balance. Through the mitzvot, as say the Sefer HaChinuch explains, we produce the love of Hashem. Okay? When you love your wife and she tells you to please take out the garbage, so you do anything and everything she wants you to do. Or like Rabbi explains, you don't even wait for her to ask you to take out the garbage. You do the dishes without her asking what you love. Any element that you love, you do on behalf of that idea or that person. So there's ahava through the mitzvot aseh, and there's yirah that will be produced by red light. Red line, don't pass, don't trespass. When I develop the fitness for not trespassing the mitzvot, then I build this yirah, this lack of doing. I'm in awe, I'm in fear. There's a lower level of fear, our great scholars explain, fear of punishment. And there's a higher level of fear of the greatness of God. I'm in awe. He's amazing. You do anything and everything. I'm just, wow, it's like breathtaking. My mouth is left open. I should close it so the flies don't go inside. I know that. So that's awe. Here's the greatness of awe of Avram Avinu klapei towards the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yet God continues to speak with him. Pasuk Dalet, verse 4. Ani, hine, it's a surprise, it's a novelty. Vriti itach, my Brit is with you. Okay, what is the result of this Brit? And now we shall see 4 different matters. When we ask the question, what is contained in this Brit that was not established with Brit ben Abitarim? We just learned about a Brit. We just learned about a covenant. So what's the novelty here? And now we're going to see 4 items. Number 1, Vayita le'av, last 2 words. One more time, Vayita le'av, Hamon goyim. Father, obviously not the biological father. Rather, we're talking about the spiritual, educational father who brought monotheism into the world. Big time. He received, he had the abilities, but he was able to reveal the abilities. He reached the conclusions of belief in one God, And wherever he goes, he's talking that there is a one God in the world. And his role is a universal role. It's not something private. He's not a private individual, but rather he has a worldly role to be the father of the multitude of nations, to spread the faith of one God, not to convert, but to teach whoever he comes in contact with that there is a one God. Matter number 2, established in this Brit Pasuk, V'lo yikarei od et shimcha Avram, v'aya shimcha Avraham, ki av hamon goyim nitaticha. The Gemara says in Masechet Brachot, page 13, if anyone calls Avraham Avram, he's transgressing a positive mitzvah. Oh my gosh. So I assume that it's allowed to be done until you get to the name change. But afterwards, hey, be careful. Yeah, you with the kippah. Only call him from now on Avram. Let me speak to Nehemiah. Nehemiah, we read in Psukei de Zimra. What do we read, please? Ato Hashem Elokim, your God, the God of the Lord, Asher Bacharta be'Avram. Would you please arrest Nehemiah? Votzeito mi Or Kasdim, and then you took him out of Or Kasdim. V'samta shemo. There it is. He corrected the matter. So he didn't violate anything. Don't worry, he knows better than we know. Okay? So there's a name change. Apparently the name Avram, he cannot be the father of the multitude of nations. And maybe once we get to this promise, Revelation number 4, he will now have the ability with the name change to be the father of many nations, including biologically a child of himself. Pasuk Vav, verse 6. Number 3, what's established in his Brit, Vifreiti otcha b'ma'od me'od. Can you establish a noun in the word Vifreiti? Hebrew? Pri. Fruit. Okay? Your seed will be multiplied. Okay? Vifreiti otcha b'ma'od me'od u'taticha legoyim. And nations will come out of you. What kind of nation will come out of you? Obviously, Yisrael. There are some that say Edom, Rashi brings, the Edomite nation will come out of Esav, which comes from Yitzchak Avinu. Different understandings. And even Milachim, kings, will come out of you. Give me a name of a king. Not Julius Caesar. What? David HaMelech. Very nice. Does he come out of Avram Avinu? Okay. So you realize these promises have been they've been already fulfilled. Pasuk, and now the 4th matter of this Brit, Pasuk Zayin, Vakimoti et Briti, beini uveinecha, but not just between you, uvein zaracha acharecha, not only your seed afterwards, it's going to be lidorotam livrit olam. If Christianity thought that the Brit here with the seed of Avram is temporary until the beginning of the Second Temple period, whatever, no. It's going to be livrit olam, forever. Eternal. It's an eternal choice. You know, sometimes Hananel makes a decision to buy tomatoes at the grocery store over there. And then sometimes he goes down below on Rehov Shoshana. This is not buying tomatoes. Here's one day this store, the other day the other store. The choice in Avram is eternal. Livrit olam. The choice in Avram is Livrit Olam. What is the ultimate purpose of this choice? Liot l'chai Elohim. So I'm going to be your God for you. Liot l'chai Elokim. U'lezaracha acharecha. So here we have, number 1, the idea of this Brit is to make him Av Hamon Goyim. Number 2, to multiply his seed. Number 3, to establish the Brit with the seed of Avraham. And now, number 4, Pasuk Chet, V'natati lecha u'lezaracha acharecha et eretz migurecha. I'm going to give you Eretz Yisrael. Et kol Eretz Canaan. For when? Lachuzat olam, forever. Vayiti lahem le'elohim. When you're in Eretz Yisrael, I'm a God for you. When you're living in Brooklyn, what does the Talmud say? The end of Masechet Ketubot? Kol adar b'chutz la'aretz ki'ilu ein lo Eloah. Amazing Gemara. If you're living abroad, it's as if you don't have a God. It's not me. It's not David Ben Gurion saying this, or Herzl. This is Chazal. Okay? Here, where's their source? Over here. When you're gonna be living in Eretz Canaan, I will be for them, for the seed, Elokim. So, gentlemen, if we can sum up some of the things right now, Avram until now certainly was tahor, pure in his mind, pure in his thought, despite the home environments that he had in Ur Kasdim and all the idolatry. Avram left and came and now met up with one God here in the land of Canaan. There was no doubt that he was a tzaddik, even though the Torah did not tell us, like it told us about Noach. He was a tzaddik in all his ways. Every act he did, as Eliyahu Kitov explains in his commentary on the Chumash, every act Avram did was in order to sanctify God's holy name. He has holy thoughts, holy expression, holy speech. He's doing kindness and he's showing love to his fellow man, but he's not doing it for personal gain. We saw the war. At the end of the war, he was offered anything and everything. But I don't even want a shoelace, he says. I don't want anyone to think that anyone is making me wealthy other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, because of this holiness that he has, and his righteousness that he has, and his perfect faith that he has, each time we see and learn in this Parashat that Avram is tested, he comes out with flying colors. He doesn't complain once or twice at all. He doesn't think a third time, maybe this is wrong. Avram passes every test. And therefore Chazal tell us in chapter 5 of Pirkei Avot, Asara Nisyanot Nitnasa Avram Avinu. 10 trials was he tested. And every trial, Avram reveals a new layer, a new level of love to Hashem, obedience to Hashem, devotion to God. With every trial that he's tested, he gets higher and higher and higher. And you may even say that Avram was a chassid because he did many things that were above and beyond the law. Did he have to go fight a war against the 4 kings, 4 armies with 318 soldiers to free his nephew? The same nephew that said, goodbye, I don't want you and I don't want your God? Yes, Avram's a chassid, with or without peyot, with or without a bekesher, or with or without a shtreimel. You don't have to have the uniform in order to be a chassid. You can learn from here. Although, you're right, the Chumash is not accompanied with pictures, etc. But even though Avram is not commanded, he does everything. Finally, Avram is also a Navi, a prophet. He has all these qualities. He's getting all these revelations. Let's go on and understand further about this Brit. Pasuk Tet, again, Vayomer Elokim. You can ask, but I don't have an answer. Why does it have to tell us again, Vayomer? Maybe it's the end of an idea, even though there's no gap in here. Vayomer Elokim El Avraham. Aviata et Briti Tishmor. Ata v'zaracha charecha lidorotam. There's something about keeping, maintaining the Brit. Maintaining the Brit. I don't think this has to do with, during Greek times, some of you may know that Hellenistic Jewry, okay, the Greek Jews that were so assimilated to Greek ways, and they would often walk around naked and nude amongst themselves, the men, and the Jews would be even embarrassed before their Greek teachers and others to walk around showing as if they have a Brit. So if you thought plastic surgery started in our last century, you're mistaken. According to Rav, what's the name of the rabbi? Rav Beryl Wine. According to Rav Beryl Wine, a great historian rabbi who made aliyah from Muncie to Rechavia, He's head of the Beit Knesset Nasi for the last, 30 years or so. He says that the Jews did some sort of resurgery to take off their Brit Milah as if, to go back on their Brit Milah and show as if that they have skin on the area, etc. Sounds wild, but if anyone can do it, Jewish people can do it. Rely on the Jewish people that we can go the furthest away. So here, it's not really clear to me what is the shmirah here, that he has to be doing shmirah on the Brit. Look, it's only obedience, Eretz Yisrael, belief, maybe that could be the idea. Zot Briti, here it is. Here we come now to the instructions of what has to be done. Asher tishmeru beni uvenechem, uven zaracha charecha. The verb, himol lachem kol zachar. The first time we come in contact in the Torah with this verb, himol. And we ask ourselves, how in the world does it mean to cut, to take off the orla? So, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who has a very fascinating commentary, and some of you, if you ever looked and studied it, you notice how he's very big on the textual words, on the roots of the words. And if I would ask, bevakasha, Idan, mi yoshev mulcha? Mi yoshev mulcha? What is the word mul? Spell it. Is it the same root as himol? Yes or no? The hey is just the hif'il tense, but it's mem vav lamed is part of the word milah. So Rav Shimshon Hirsch says, comes from the word mul. Mul is opposite, to oppose, to restrict the orla. To cut how? By cutting it off. So opposite, oppose, the idea, oppose the orla. How do you oppose the orla? Would you give me a knife? I'll tell you how to do it. And we cut off the tip of the limb. So that's how he explains the word himol from the word mul, mem vav lamed. So part one is doing every male. Now we understand where it has to be. Because it doesn't say himol your nose, because people don't like their Jewish nose, it's too long. No, that's not it. And it doesn't say himol your hand, but it says kol zachar. If it says every male, then I understand it's the organ that makes a male unique. Even though there are some people in the world that are a little mixed up and they want to become a female. I've heard of that movement before. They're a little confused. They're losing their natural tent. Pasuk Yud Aleph, verse 11. Unmaltem eit bisar orlatchem. So you have to go and cut off the area where there is flesh. I have another understanding now that it is basar orlatchem. And then what will be? V'hayad will be the result, le'ot, Brit, a sign of a covenant. No, the word Brit doesn't mean to circumcise, like people mistakenly think. The word Brit is a covenant. What is a covenant? A divine relationship that's starting by God, coming down to man. And we really have no say in the matter. This is an interesting mitzvah, that over the ages, over all of history, no matter how reform, no matter how disconnected our Jewish brothers have been, they've always adopted, they've always done the mitzvah of Brit Milah. What do you mean? Of course I do Brit Milah. Of course, right? The most secular of Jews over the centuries, they would always do Brit Milah. So it's like a divine entity from Lamala, Lamata, and we've accepted it. So this will be a sign of connection. And there's no better way to have a sign on the physical flesh, something we can't say, never see it. We never treat it. Of course, every time we take a shower, we're treating our entire body. And therefore, it's always there. could always be reminded of the sign. Whereas tefillin, when I put on tefillin, I have the connection on my head, on my muscle, opposite my heart. But here, it's 24/7. The connection is with us. Okay? Uven shmonatiyam, more instructions, pasuk yud bet. Yimol lechem kol zachar ledorotechem. Apparently, the little toddler, from a biological standpoint, or from his limbs, the growth of his limbs, of his body, that he's strong enough on day number 8 to receive the Brit Milah. And of course, in a more philosophical understanding, 8 is one more than, so what? So what? Ask Hananel, what is 7 symbolic of as opposed to 8? 1 second, he'll speak. 1 second. Now, take a chocolate. Think. 7 is Shabbat. It's a natural order, a natural unit of counting. Look, you don't suspect me that I visited in the Antarctica, do you? Or Scotland? Do you suspect I was in Scotland already? Do you suspect that I was already in Peking? Do you suspect that I visited Hawaii? Amen. So the answer to all these questions is no. But if you ask any resident of all these countries, do you have a 7-day week? Oh, of course we have a 7-day week. Everyone has a 7-day. It's a natural order. And then I asked him, when did you get together in the United Nations? Our friends over there didn't get. When did you get in the United Nations? The nations in the world can never get together to agree, except for one matter, Israel. Right? They all express their hatred to the Jewish people. Thank you, Sebastian. Okay? No one's telling me the chocolate's tasty. Is it tasty? Okay, so now I go back to Hananel. 7 is natural, nature. So number 8 is? No, the number 8, what is it symbolic of?
Beyond nature.
Beyond nature.
Beyond. Very nice. 8 represents the metaphysical, the supernatural. And therefore, our great scholars have explained, like the Maharal of Prague and Chazal, I'm sure beforehand, that this is a metaphysical relationship. It's above nature. It's not according to common sense. It's not according to the laws of nature. And therefore, in verse 12, Uven shmonat yamim, I told you the chocolate does wonders for Hananel. Uven shmonat yamim yimol lechem kol zachar, when? Lidorotechem. Now I'm stopping right here. Let me contact Yoshua Ben Nun. How are you, Yoshua? I know you're studying with Moshe Rabbi. Just give me a minute, please. Just 1 minute. That's what you said. Thank you. Tell me, is it true that you guys perform Brit Milah from this pasuk over here? What? No, but it's written explicitly. So why? Now I understand everything. Yoshua Ben Nun says that this cannot be the source for the mitzvah for generations for Brit Milah. Why not, Yosef? I didn't ask you. Why not, Yosef?
Why not?
Why can this not be the source for the mitzvah of Taryag Mitzvot, one of the 613, for doing Brit Milah? Why can this not be the source? L'chaim. Give him another piece of chocolate. Maybe it'll help him as well. Do you have an answer? Avram, help us out. Why can this not be the source for the mitzvah for all generations to do Brit Milah? Why not?
Brit Milah, it's not a natural thing.
But it's a mitzvah from God.
It's not natural.
That's not an answer. You have an answer, Gedalia? That's an honest answer. It's Mr. Drury.
Yes. Is it because it wasn't given? This is not to Bnei Israel. This is to Avram.
But it says Lidoro Techem for all your generations.
But all the mitzvot were given to Bnei Israel in the desert, right?
Which desert? Nevada desert? What are you talking about?
In Sinai.
At Sinai. All the mitzvot for us, for all generations, can only come from Sinai. if it's pre-Sinai, it cannot serve as the source for the mitzvah for all generations. And therefore, where do we meet up with in, what's that bestseller called? The Chumash. Where do we meet up in the Chumash with the mitzvah of Brit Milah? Anyone know? That's also before.
When they are about to cross the Jordan.
No. What?
In the case of Tzipora?
No, but that's also before Sinai, Yosef. No, that's after Sinai. That's 40 years after Sinai. That's before Sinai as well. There's a parsha called Tazria in the book of Vayikra. Tabero b'nei Yisrael isha ki tazria v'yada zachar v'tama shevat yamim u'vayom hashmini yimo b'sar orlato. Okay? After the birth of a male, she'll be defiled for so many days. And on the 8th day, after the 7 days of tum'ah, because a woman that gave birth usually bleeds like a menstruating woman. There's bleeding at the time of the birth. So she is tame'ah, impure. So the basic initial period without chazal is a shiva yamim tum'ah. And the Gemara brings, so why is Brit Milah on the 8th day? Because everyone is happy. What does it mean everyone is happy? She's no longer to her husband, tame'ah. She's no longer defiled. Because after birth, she's defiled only for 7 days. On day 8, she's already permitted. Therefore, let's do the Brit Milah, God says, on day number 8, and everyone is happy. He and his wife.
There's another question. Why you have to wait 7 days?
Okay. So the laws of Tumantah, we're not going to get into here. These are metaphysical matters, but...
There's more natural thing about it.
Okay.
It's because the boy has to live with his mother for a period of time.
Okay, very nice.
You don't slaughter the
Right on the 8th day. Right, very nice. And Mr. Yosef.
If this is the case, then what is the Torah teaching us about the word for Abraham that this is for all of your generation? What is the Brit Milah right here?
So it has to be for Lidorotechem until Sinai. I would, the simple meaning, according to what you're all saying, until Sinai, we didn't only have 7 Noachite laws, we had Brit Milah.
So it's like continuation.
And God at Sinai will repeat this mitzvah because only Torah can be given at Sinai. Can be given even in Bratislava, it cannot be given. And even in Warsaw, it cannot be given. It can only be given in Sinai. Beautiful. Now, to your surprise, maybe, here at the end of verse 12, Yelid Bayit. Whoever is born in your house, Avram Avinu, meaning from another woman, a maidservant, had relations with another servant, Mazal Tov, to have a baby servant, and Umiknat Kesef, wherever you purchased a baby, a toddler, you have to perform a Brit Milah. Mikol ben Nechar, from any foreign entity. Asher lo mizarachahu. Why? Because we go according to the father, Avram Avinu, his house, the house of the male. His house has to be pure, holy, with a Brit. Even if he adopted someone from another nation, doesn't make a difference. Avram Avinu. This will continue until Sinai. Then everything will go according to the mother. But right now, everyone that's part of this house, he has to be having a Brit Milah. 1 second, gentlemen. לפני שמונה גם כן, יש להתבית מכל שאני ללמוד לפני שמונה. So there's a Gemara that even brings that it can be done even before day 8 if it's from others. But I'm not going to get into this matter whatsoever. Shall we go on? Pasuk Yud Gimel. Again, Himol. The Torah is doubling it up to teach you. Rashi says, Sheyesh Yilid Bayit Nimol Le'echad. There could even be such a thing that on day number 1, if someone is born to a maidservant, then it can even be circumcised on day number 1. Tell me, is it the Islamic world that they do in their hospital? they perform a circumcision? Does anyone know?
At 13.
At 13? Learn from the section of Yishmael here. But in the Christian world, do they perform a circumcision in the hospitals? They do not. Depending on the country. In Europe, there are countries that they do. They want to ban, right? There are going countries that want to ban us from
in the Netherlands.
Shechita as well, no? Shechita and Milah?
Almost a lot of meat in the Netherlands is coming from Belgium right now, and there are almost no Brit Milah in the Netherlands. It's a big problem because they do it, but then the government is looking for them where they're doing it because they're.
Anti-Semitism is spreading.
In Poland, you cannot do circumcision because of religious. It's forbidden by law, or because of religious reasons.
You can say what you can say, but the last point is that there's anti-Semitism. It's getting more and more and more against the Jewish people.
The only family I know in Britain.
Not only Jewish, basically, because they also affect Muslim world. They have this.
Because until now, Holland was very, very friendly to the Jewish people over the ages, over the centuries. There was a lot of religious liberty and respect. And how many Dutch families hid Jewish families from Europe during the Holocaust? Many cases were found. Yes, what did you want to say, Avram?
The only family in England that they do the Brit is the royal family.
Is that right?
Yeah. I know that it's a tradition. They have their more. Second, all the members of the royal family. But they don't do it for
religious reasons.
Well, technically they do. Technically they say it is religious.
Okay, let's go on. From the royal family, God willing, we'll have the house of David soon, God willing. So again in Parashat Gimel, Himo Yimo Yelid Beitcha Miknat Kaspecha, that it can even be done on day one. There's an understanding, that's why the repetition of this mitzvah. Vaita veriti bivsarchem livrit olam. What is the consequence of not performing this Milah circumcision? Pasuk Yudalid. Ve'arel zachar. Arel, we said, is the orla, the foreskin. Ve'arel zachar, by the way, a person is considered, here it's a noun, an arel. And in biblical times, if someone cursed a Jew, like the match between David and Goliath, and David representing the army of God, Goliath blasphemed, cursed David and the God of Israel and the army of Israel. How did David get back to him before the slingshot? He called him an arel, a foreskin, non-Gentile. That's considered a curse. That's considered an insult. Thank you, Avram. So arel zachar in pasuk Yudalid, asher lo yimoler besar orlato, like you said, bas v'nichreta. The official punishment called karet. Hanefesh ahi me'ameh et briti efar. Look how important, look how solid, how we can't play around with this. Now, I once talked to this 8-year-old baby and I said, how do you do it? And he says, go to my father. So I went to his father, and his father was lazy, and his father didn't do it. And then it was a day before his bar mitzvah. And I said, are you still in Arel? He says, yes. So the father had one more day to perform the mitzvah. Once the day passes and the father doesn't do it, as the Talmud explains in Masechet Kiddushin, incumbent upon the son to do the Brit Milah, then he's commanded to do it himself. The mitzvah is on him. And only after the age of 13, if he doesn't do it, the punishment of karet is not on the father, but rather on the son. Of course, if Hananel grows to become a dayan, together with other nice Jews, and you open up the Beit Din, then the Beit Din has to warn the family. You don't want to do it? Let us do it. Let's involve ourselves. Let the Beit Din of Israel do it. Remember, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh. all of Israel are guarantors one to the other. So if a father doesn't perform a Brit Milah and we're aware of the situation, we can involve ourselves as the Beit Din and go and try to tell them. Because here, this is one of two positive mitzvot that if it's not done, it's the punishment called karet, to be cut off. The other one, Yosef?
Correct.
That there's a karet. Usually the 36 kritot that the Talmud mentions is talking about violating a lo ta'aseh, a negative commandment. But there are only two positive commandments that if they're not done, they obligate karet. One is Brit Milah, the second is Idan? Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach. The Torah states in Shmo chapter 12 regarding the Korban Pesach that if it's not performed, and later again in Bamidbar Tet, then there too is a punishment of karet to show how deep, how special it is. Let's go on. Pasuk Tet Vav. There's now a gap. The commandment of Milah and the Brit and many of the details are told to us right now. Okay? However, Avram could have thought that the child or the children that he might have could have been, like he thought mistakenly before, maybe Lot, maybe Damasek Eliezer, maybe from someone, maybe Yishmael from Agar. But now we have a novelty. Pasuk Tedva, verse 15, Vayomer Elohim el Avraham, Sarai ishtecha lo tikra et shema Sarai, ki Sarah shema. Gentlemen, Sarah is now involved. She's called upon because she too has equal worthiness, as Rav Shimshon Frosh explains. She has equal importance in the essential factor of what this covenant will be, this promise matter. So listen, just as Avram's significance in this covenant would be perpetuated by a name change, so too the equal essential importance of Sarai, her importance will be perpetuated by changing her name as well, from Sarai to Sarah. First of all, some of you would like a tour in the parliament. I spoke yesterday or 2 days ago with one of my friends, and he's a tour guide in the Knesset. And he cannot make you a meeting with a minister called, in Hebrew, a Sar, a minister. Okay? Sarai is my minister, my princess. Okay? She can't just be my princess, Sarai, Asar Shali. She has to be Sarah, meaning in general, the princess of all the nations. She will now have a new designation. Let's read it. A new designation. One second. No, but in the meaning, Sarah, that's what Rashi says. Demashma Sarai li velo lachirim. Ki Sarah shetei Sarah al kol. She'll be a princess of all the nations. Okay? Instead of Sarai, my princess, meaning only to Avram, now she'll be to Avraham as well, but now she will have a universal meaning. Okay? What is really the meaning of a Sar, a prince or a princess? According to Hirsch, the nobility in Sarah's name is related to the root sin, resh, hey. There is a word, mishra. That's a liquid measure. Okay? And there's a liquid measure called misra. Okay? Tishtu mayim min misra. Okay? It's a certain type of measure. However, the Sar, the prince, formed from this root, Sar, prince or princess Sarah, he keeps bounds. He sets them every time there have to be bounds, limitations in the world. So the word misura, which is a measure, a liquid measure, primarily designates the smallest measure for valuable things. But now, Sarah imenu, all the daughters of Israel will come from Sarah Imenu. She's going to set the tone in the house. Sarah will have a great heart. She will have the most delicate feelings for the right measure of justice, of righteousness, of honesty, of inner beauty, whatever is holy. And that will be the job of Sarah together with Avram Avinu. What about her blessing? Pasuk 16. Uveirachti ota, her. V'gam natati mimena lecha bein. Wow. Why gam? In addition to what? Who does Yishmael belong to? Who is Yishmael considered the son of? Sarah. Why? Because if a maidservant is offered to Avraham, that means that's in lieu of, instead of Sarah. If she can't give birth, let her have a child through a maidservant. So really, it's really considered like the son of Sarah. Okay? And I'm going to, v'gam natati mimena lecha ben. She's going to have a son from you. In other words, she'll be blessed with raising a child, and it'll come from her herself. This will be the novelty. No, it's not Yishmael. Uverachti ha, I will bless her. Vaitala goyim, nations will come out of her. Malchei amim. Do you see the parallel blessings that Sarah is receiving just like her husband Avram? So you see here, she will have a blessing of biologically having a child, which of course goes against the laws of nature. No one at her age, at the age of 90, and no one at his age, at the age of 100, will have a child. After hearing that it's going to come from Avram and Sarah, what happens to Avram Avinu in verse 17? Vayipol Avraham al panav. He falls. Again, out of fear, like you would say, Gedalia, out of fear perhaps. And what does he do? Vayitzchak. The verb litzchok, you all know means? Is this laughing, zilzul, belittling? Could it be from the great prophetess mother, the wife of Avram Avinu? Is this laughing of Avram Avinu out of belittling? No. It's laughter out of happiness. Laughing out of happiness after hearing the good tiding. But of course he fell on his face. Because when he hears this divine promise of the Brit, and now it's going to happen to him and his wife, he asks in his heart. By the way, it says, Vayomer b'libo. How does God know what's going on in his heart? What do you say?
He sees the heart.
Very nice. God knows everything. God knows that you're going to answer that question as well. So he says in his heart, Haleven me'ashana yivaled. Do you see the letter Hey in front of the word leven? Ha is question. Ha'im, Haleven me'ashana, meaning after hearing this great bracha, Avram doesn't understand the meaning of it. He's in a state of wonder. In his eyes, okay, it's not a lack of faith. Don't misunderstand. It's an expression of wonder. Avram doesn't lack faith here. It's an expression of wonder of God's greatness. Because according to this existing situation, the facts of life are, he went to every medical clinic. He went to Klali and Lu'umit and Me'uchedet. He went to all the clinics here in the land of Canaan. And he says, until when do people have children? Are you above 45, 50 years old? I'm sorry. That was the answer he was given. Okay? He's in a state of wonder. So, point one, Halaven mea shana yivaled. Listen to the Malbim's beautiful explanation. I have to share this with you. Again, Halaven, could it be that someone is the age of Ben mea shana yivaled, will have a child? Let's say I'm married to a woman that can give birth, But can a man of 100 years have the ability to have a child? Wonder. Pele, not the soccer player. Pele, number one. Pele, number two. What does he say? Ve'im Sarah havat tishim shana. Look, Sarah, she's barren. She's been a barren woman. What? Her nature's going to turn? She's been barren for so many years. And number three, habat tishim shana teleid. Even if she wasn't barren, if she's not Sarah, she's 90 years old. She's in a state of wonder, astonishment. Okay? So it's very clear. In those days, even then, it was unusual for men and women to have children. The Ramban says here at length, at the age of 90 or the age of 100. However, if they didn't have children in their young age, then the laws of nature are telling them that they're not going to have children in their later age. So these points come into place right now. But God said, "V'natati mimena." It's going to come from her. Pasuk Yudchet. Vayomer Avram el Elohim, out of this astonishment, and he doesn't understand how things through nature will happen. Avram says, Lu. You see the word Lu? No, it's not Uncle Lu, L-O-U. Lu Yishmael Yichyeh lefanecha. Meaning, Lu is like halavai. Have you heard of that term before used in Hebrew? Halavai, halavai, may it be. Okay? Since according to Avram Avinu's understanding, that Sarah might not give birth, but rather maybe some child already born that Sarah will adopt. Maybe that'll be the case. So if so, Avram's praying, I don't need anyone. I have a Yishmael. Halavai, that the child will be attaching himself to Sarah, will be Yishmael. Lefanecha, maybe that will be the chosen son to be in God's honor. Lefanecha. Does God accept that? Vayomer Elokim. Aval. As you all know, the word aval in verse 19 is a word of contrast. Not like you think. Not like what you thought, that Sarah will have a child through someone else. No. Rather, Sarah ishtecha yoledet lecha ben. And not only that, vikarata et shemo Yitzchak. If I ask you a quiz question, which child was he named already before the 8th day? And your answer is Yitzchak. God prophetically called the child. So at the Brit Milah, no one was surprised. Everyone heard already in advance. You're cordially asked to join our Brit Milah of our son called Yitzchak. What? In the announcement, the name is already made. What's going on here? It's a prophecy. V'karata et shmo Yitzchak. Makimoti et Briti. Ken. Ito. Ito and not who? Yishmael. It has to be clear. God's will is that the Brit, the covenant, the connection for a nation to become is only from Yitzchak and not from Yishmael. And in the blessing that we recite after Borei Pri Agafen at the Brit Milah, we say the words, as brought in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat 137, Asher Kidesh Yadid Mi Beten. The Yadid, this fellow that's going to be loved, he's already sanctified from the stomach, from the inner being. Rashi explains that this Yitzchak prior to birth, he was already sanctified for this mitzvah. He was already established. His name was already called. Already in the womb of the mother. What about Yishmael and Pasukaf? Uli Yishmael Shematicha, I heard your claim. I heard your prayer on behalf of Yishmael. However, God reveals that he will give him a blessing, but only one particular blessing. Which one? Uli Yishmael Shematicha, Hinei beirachti oto, ve'freiti oto, ve'beiti oto, me'od me'od. In other words, the promise regarding Ishmael is only regarding the physical multitude of people that will come out of Yishmael. But regarding a Brit, it's not regarding Ishmael whatsoever. In fact, there'll be a parallel. Shnei Masar Nesiyim. He will give birth, okay, to 12 princes. Nachon, Hashem will not give Yishmael the ultimate kingdom. The kingdom of the Malchut of God will come out of the Jewish people. Okay? They will not have their kings anointed with oil like King David and so on, the kings of Judah and Israel. But rather, each one will be a prince in his land. Okay? That'll be the bracha. As we're told that this is going to happen in a year from now in verse 21. Now, the ending of the prophecy. Let's quickly skip to Pasuk Kavbet 22. Vayichal edaber. That's it. Wow, it's a lot of prophecy. A lot of content, like 20 psukim of divine communication. Vayal Elokim, the divine presence, as if rises, detaches itself right now. A deep breath. Avram has been a recipient of all this. Me'al Avram. And now, you would think that Avram calls up. Can you please make a reservation for me in Sarat, the hotel, for a while? I need a break. You know, God's been talking to her. No break. What happens? Pasuk Kav Gimel 23. Vayikach Avram et Yishmael beno. For what? V'kol yelidei beito, his entire house. V'kol miknat kaspo, whoever children he bought. Kol zachar, every male b'anshei beit Avram. And what does he do right away in this pasuk? Tan taran tan. Please pronounce the verb properly. Va. One more time. Where is the cantillation sign? Over the yud. So let's properly pronounce it again. Vayamol. Very good. Kol hakavod, Yosef. Vayamol et bisar or latam. When? Be'etzem hayom, is on that very day. Kasher diber ito Elokim. In other words, Avram Avinu doesn't take a reservation to the hotel, doesn't go on vacation, doesn't procrastinate. Immediately, techef umiyad, he gets into action, and he circumcises the entire whatever unit of people. We're not even told how many Yishmael and children were born or purchased and so on. But he doesn't stop there. Avram ben Tishim v'teisha shana. He's 99 years old when he's now learning a new profession of a mohel. Bihi molo, bisar or lato. Yes, sir, Avram.
What happened to the people which Avram and Sarah acquired?
Beautiful. We asked the Torah. The Torah is giving a response right now. Pasuk 25. V'Yishmael beno. How old was he? Shlosh Esrei Shana. That's why you said maybe the Ishmaelites have accustomed to do circumcision at the age of 13, like Ishmael. B'malo et b'sar lalato. So he has a bar mitzvah and a Brit and a Milah, but not a Brit. You hear? He's doing right now a Milah for Yishmael. Avram does not stop. Be'etzem hayom hazeh, on that day himself. Who else is circumcised? Nimol Avram v'Yishmael beno, and so on and so forth. My dear friends, if you want to know how much Avram did in one day, circumcising, the Ibn Ezra says, and I'm quoting, and behold, he did not delay, and on that day, 318 members of his household he circumcised. And then, on that day, Yishmael as well, and the children of the Bayit were also done, and Avraham did himself, as the Ramban says, last. Why last? I thought he loves himself. Shouldn't he do himself first? Didn't Avram receive the prophecy to be circumcised? So why? I would think he would do a circumcision to himself first. Why last? Answer?
Agony.
Very good. The Ramban says also, he did himself last, so that had he done himself first, he might be ill, he might be in danger, he might feel weak, and he won't be able to make efforts to do circumcision. So look at this, gentlemen. We learn here about the alacrity, the quickness, the alertness of Avram Avinu, the love he has for Hashem, that even in his old age, 99, he does several hundred britot or milot during one day. Now, look, I need your mathematical help. It says, Be'etzem Hayom hazeh, is that what that it said? Be'etzem hayom hazeh, did that? Yeah, hayom. Hayom and not halayla. Look, let's say at 12 hours. Would you please divide 318 into 12? How many per hour does he do? How many? 20 and a half. 26 and a half. 60 minutes divided by 26 and a half. Come on. I need your mathematical help, Sebastian.
So, per minute, 0.44 per people.
2.26
minutes. Okay.
I didn't understand what you're saying, Meir Natan.
2 minutes 2:26, like about 2.5 minutes.
Yes.
Minutes or persons?
1
How
minute
many per person per minute?
One person per 2.5 minutes.
But
So it's not that fast.
But for the amount of people, a lot of people.
Okay. Now, Gidah's going to ask, he's a member of the labor union, and he's going to ask, where is his rights for a cup of coffee or a tea break? In the middle. Ha Gedaliah. So, is that amazing? Is that amazing? There are times that God gives a blessing, and there are twins that are born. However, the halacha states that we don't do mitzvot chavilot. We don't do many mitzvot in one time. And in order to cause a hefsek, we, if they're twins to be performed, the Brit is done for one of the babies. And then people walk outside of the house. And then they come back inside the house. And then they do the second Brit so that one is not done after one another. I assume that halacha is not applicable here. Baruch Hashem, this is the greatness of Avraham Avinu. May we be inspired by the great faith of Avraham, by the great quickness and alertness of Avraham Avinu, and to merit his righteousness and his saintliness, and to receive nevuah b'meira v'yameinu. Amen. Shalom, gentlemen. I wish everyone